Hey there, welcome back to Colin's Court. I'm Colin, and today we're going over a beginner's guide to buying a tennis racket and what specs you need to pay attention to. Now there are a dozen different brands with hundreds of different rackets, all with different specs. So how do you find the racket that's right for you? We're going to start with 5 specs that I feel are the most important. There are several places where you could go to buy a racket, but Tennis Express accurately lists the specs that make it easier to pick out what's right for you. So let's type in tennisexpress.com, click on rackets, and you see they have 11 different brands that they carry. The 3 I'm going to recommend are Wilson, Babolat, and Head. In my experience, these 3 brands provide the widest selection to fit all skill sets and swing types. Let's go ahead and click on the big red W for Wilson and scroll down until we see Wilson Clash V2.0 100L and click on that. Ignore the pricing, I'm just using this racket as an example of what you are looking for. Now on the right you see size. This is referring to the first spec we need to pay attention to, our grip size. There are 2 sets of numbers in each box. But what do these numbers mean? The 0 is a European sizing and the 4 and 0/8 is the US sizing. Here is a chart that shows all of the sizes a grip may come in. The lower the number, the smaller the grip. Euro sizing starts at 0 and goes up to 5, while US sizing starts at 4 and 0/8 and goes up to 4 and 5/8. Why don't they just come in one size to indicate all grips? Great question, but I don't have the answer. It sure would be nice if these companies would just use 0 through 5 and call it a day. I mean, they already put both numbers on a sticker that is slapped on the racket. I guess it makes too much sense, and that's just not the world we live in. Here's how you tell what size grip you need. Once you find a racket, go and take a grip. If you have enough spacing here to place your index finger, then you've got a grip that's the right size for you. If you hold lower and your fingers overlap and there's no space here for your index, well, that grip is just too small. And then vice versa. If there's too much space in between those fingers and your thumb, well, then that's just too big. If you don't have a racket or a place where you can go size your hand on a racket, here's my advice. The majority of people will use a 3 or a 4 and 3/8. If you feel that your hand is a little smaller, then go with a 2 or 4 1/4. If you are unsure what size to go with, remember this. You can always make a grip bigger, but you cannot make it smaller. If you feel like your grip is too small, simply adding an overgrip or 2 can make the grip larger and provide a better comfort. But if you buy a grip that is too large, it cannot be made smaller. So start off with either a size of 2 or 4 and 1/4 or 3 and 4 and 3/8. Now let's scroll down a tad, and on the right we come to product specs. There are 13 specs listed here, but we are only going to pay attention to 4. The second spec for us to look at is racket head size, which is measured in square inches. The head size of a racket can range from 88 square inches to 110 square inches or even larger. Let's think about our racket head like a trampoline. The bigger the trampoline, the bigger the bounce or more power. You can create more power even with a smaller racket head. However, it will just be created with more ease the larger that racket head is. That being said, the more power you create, the less control you might have over the ball. So the last thing you want to do is go out and buy a racket with the largest head size you can find. We need a healthy balance, so going with a 100 square inch head is what I would recommend to begin with. The third spec to pay attention to will be racket length, which will be listed in inches. A racket's length can range from 17 all the way up to 29 inches, but you should only focus on rackets that are 27 inches. These are considered full-size or adult rackets and consist of the most majority of rackets that you might be considering. I say pay attention to length because I've had a few people send me links to rackets and did not see that they were 26 inch or even smaller, so they were one click away from ordering a junior racket. I've got 2 pictures here. One is a full-length 27 inch racket and the other is a 26 inch junior racket. Can you tell the difference? Heck, I can. Just by looking at these side by side, you'd think they're identical. If you're on a website like Tennis Express or Tennis Warehouse, they indicate the racket length in the product description. But other online retailers like Amazon or Academy may not. So I just want to help you prevent a little frustration and get you the right racket ordered the first time. Here in the future, I will do a separate video on junior rackets and how to go about picking the one that's best for your child. But for today, we're sticking with full-size rackets. The fourth spec we come to is one of the more important ones in my eyes, and that is racket weight. Like the grip size, we have both European and US weight in grams and in ounces. We will be sticking with ounces because I'm in the US. We see that it also gives us 2 different weights, unstrung and strung. The weight that comes listed on the tennis racket itself will be its unstrung weight, So we will pay attention to that, and in a later video I'll go into detail as to why they list strung weight. Now here's the rule that I want us to follow. Use the heaviest weight that you can comfortably control. Rackets will range between 9 ounces all the way up to 12 ounces. It doesn't sound like much of a difference when you think of weight being in ounces, but when you are swinging that racket a few thousand times, you can really feel the difference. Here's another way that I want you to think about this. If you've ever gone bowling, when you first get to the alley, you pick out a ball. They vary in weight, some light and some heavy. The lighter ball you can throw faster, but it doesn't necessarily have the same momentum that a heavier one would, and thus when it hits the pins, it doesn't quite explode. Professional bowlers use the heaviest ball they can to create more momentum and more action on the pins when the ball strikes them. The same applies to a tennis racket. My serve really cracks when I swing a 12-inch racket, but my arm pays the price for it later, and it's harder for me to control my ground strokes. So I like to use a racket around 11 ounces when it's unstrung. My good technique allows me to swing a heavier racket without causing injury, and I'm able to control the racket well in all aspects of my game. So if you're starting out new in the game, I recommend you stay between 10 and 10.6 ounces. You can go a little lighter if you feel like you need to, but 10 ounces is the lowest I would recommend, because with too light of a racket, you will feel like you're working very hard to create the momentum you're looking to create. Our fifth and final spec is called string pattern. As you can see here in the chart, there are 16 mains and 19 crosses. Well, what are mains and what are crosses? Mains and crosses indicate what direction the strings run within the racket. The mains, which are always the first to be put into a racket, run vertically north and south. The crosses, which are added second, run horizontally east and west. Okay, cool, but why are those numbers important to me? Well, let's go back to the thinking of our racket like a trampoline. The fewer number of mains and crosses you have, the looser the string pattern is, and the more spring you will get off the racket. The higher the number of mains and crosses, the tighter the string pattern, thus giving us less spring. So a 16 by 18 will be more springy, aiding in additional power, and an 18 by 20 will be tighter, aiding in additional control. On the racket itself, you will see the string pattern indicated by two numbers, 16/19. The mains always being the first of the two numbers and the crosses being the second. For those just getting into the sport, you are looking for a string pattern that is either 16 by 18 or 16 by 19. As your technique improves and you become more aggressive with your swing, you can look to go for a tighter string pattern. So after going these 5 specs, here's what you should be looking for in a racket. A grip size that is either a 2 or a 3, or 4 1/4 or 4 3/8. A head size that is around 100 square inches, a length that is 27 inches, an unstrung weight between 10 and 10.6 ounces, and a string pattern that is 16 by 18 or 16 by 19. Now there are several different brands and styles to choose from, but having these base specs to choose from will help narrow that down. Now go find a racket that meets these specs that you think looks cool, because let's be honest, look good, play good, and you are on your way to playing a sport that will last you a lifetime. If this has been helpful, please hit the like button, and if there are any questions that you may have, please drop a comment down below, because I would love to answer them. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.